Right. Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the first webinar episode of ProPak Philippines in 2021. Our theme for today is about smart packaging in the new normal, powered by Zoom and broadcast and organized by Informal Markets. My name is Mark, event manager for ProPak Philippines under Informal Markets. I'll be your moderator for today. Before we start, just a reminder of our housekeeping rules. All microphones and videos of the attendees will be automatically muted, and the chat box will be disabled throughout the session. If you have any question to our speaker, please type in the Q&A box. We'll have a Q&A session toward the end of the session. The Q&A box should be either on top or at the bottom of your screen, depending on which device you are using. Please be informed that we are live on ProPak Philippines YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook account. Should there be any interruption during the session, please be patient and sign in again. Just in case that you get disconnected from Zoom, couldn't get it again, please watch us on those live stream platforms on our social media. Toward the end of the webinar, we'll be asked for you to complete our survey. Please take a minute to answer the survey before leaving us today. Your feedback will be useful for us to improve our future events. So, first speaker today is a 40-year-old veteran. He may look younger than you thought he is. So he's been in the packaging industry for quite some time, who founded and ran the UK's Processing and Packaging Machinery Association, or PPMA, for 20 years. He has established the PPMA Machinery Only Show, which continues to run successfully after more than 30 years. He was the editor-in-chief and publisher of Machinery Update, the UK's leading packaging technology journal. Since 2011, he has been the communications director of the Active Intelligent Packaging Industry Association, or AIPIA. He's based in the Netherlands, which he helps to establish the association. He writes and commentates extensively on smart packaging. He has been to over 70 countries, speaking and lecturing about the packaging sector in general. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Andrew Manley.
Thank you very much, Mark, and good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I would just like to say that I'm very pleased to be able to contribute once again to the ProPak Philippines. Last year it was live and I was nice and warm. This morning I'm sitting in a very cold, dark and wet Amsterdam. Looking forward to when we can go live again in the future. If we can put up my slides, please, then I will start my presentation.
Andrew, welcome and thank you for joining us for such an early morning from where you are. Before we go into the presentation, we would like to start off something different, keeping our audience engaged. We have one poll question for the audience. Please put up the poll question. So we want to know where we are in terms of audience knowledge on smart packaging, whether there be adoption in the next 5 years, and hopefully the content today from Andrew and Tim will be shining a light on how the participants and the attendees will be able to adopt those technologies. Okay, so Andrew, let's talk about the poll first. So we have a lot of maybes, a lot of yes. What do you think about the adoption or the possibilities or the interest of the smart packaging from our audience?
I think it's very encouraging that so many people are pretty committed. Over half the poll is saying yes. I mean, active and intelligent packaging, or smart packaging, as we like to try and call it as a group name, has a very broad number of technologies. So, you know, there are all sorts of different opportunities for companies to use it. And as I hope I'll demonstrate during my presentation, it doesn't have to be a high price point for some types of technology to be effective. And it also is quite important that it adds value to what you're trying to do, either via doing something to help your brand establish itself, or practically to put some sense on the bottom line by avoiding waste or avoiding counterfeiting or avoiding market diversion. So that's good, and maybe it's 46. Well, hopefully by the end of the presentation, if you take another poll, I'll get that figure up into the yes column a little bit more.
That is great.
And for the 2% of no's, well, I'm here to convince you otherwise. Okay.
That is great. So we know now that our attendees are here with the open-minded. So I'll have the floor to you, Andrew, to give the audience what they're here to learn. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm just waiting for my slides to come up. Hello. Are my slides coming up, folks?
Not yet, Andrew. Share screen.
Yep.
There we are.
Good.
Please.
Thank you.
Please.
Okay. All right. Good morning. As I say, or as Mark has said, I'm Andrew Manley. I'm the Communications Director of the Active Intelligent Packaging Industry Association. I wish I was 40, Mark. Thank you very much. A few years past that, but still nevertheless very committed and active in the industry. Can I have the next slide, please? This just gives you a brief overview of the association and its spread. We have over 1,800 members. We are free to join if you're a qualifying company or organization, because we think it's important to build the community rather than charge you a small amount of money. As a result, we have many, many important brand owners and retailers and research organizations. And importantly, obviously, the packaging manufacturers, the logistics companies, those companies who have never really been in the packaging industry before, who are smart packaging providers, as well as organizations like GS1 and NFC Forum. You can go to our website to learn all about what we do and how we do it. We have a free online newsletter. And this year, sadly, we're staying virtual because we believe that travel is still going to be a bit difficult for a little while longer. So we have 5 dedicated events and possibly a few events like this in the pipeline. We're certainly talking to ProPak about other events in other parts of the world. So if you're interested, please do visit our website. Next slide, please. Here's just a very quick view of the kind of people who are members. You'll recognize many of those brands. I could even do that twice and you'd still recognize lots of brands. But you can see that it's an important networking and information hub for the major smart packaging producers, the major producers of food, pharmaceuticals, beverages, etc. Next slide. And I'm hoping that many of you know a little bit about what active and intelligent packaging is. I will refer to it as smart because it's simpler than keep on saying active and intelligent all the time. But we use the word smart to encompass all types of packaging. Here's a very simple graphic to show you really the spread of what smart packaging does. Through the middle, you have the food and beverage, pharmaceuticals, converting, logistics, retail, consumers. These are the people who we're aiming at to use this kind of packaging. Above that line, You've got what we hope to achieve by them using it, and you could add a few things to that now. And below that line, you've got how we aim to achieve this. So please, if you're involved in any of those industries and you need to achieve anything like this, then smart packaging has a role to play. Next slide. What I'm hoping to do today is run you through, as I usually do in these kinds of things, some practical examples of how real products and solutions are being used in the marketplace. We're not theoretical, we're actual, we're real. And Tim, who follows me, will show you some very real things going on in the ASEAN markets. And trust me, there are lots and lots of applications out there. I'm going to try and cover very broadly a bit about COVID, a bit about counterfeiting, a bit about food waste, and then some direct consumer contact and how smart packaging can really add some value to those areas. Please, next slide. But I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just talking about sustainability. It is one of the major topics of the age. One of the criticisms or challenges leveled at smart packaging is if you're adding a component to a pack, then it's harder to recycle. Well, that in some cases is true, although a lot of work is being done to minimize that problem. But certainly, I'm just going to show you a couple of slides where we're helping, not hindering, the sustainability effort. Next slide, please. And just pose yourself the question, please. What's more important? Is it food waste or is it packaging waste? Of course, the answer is both, but we have to be balanced about this. It's no good making all these pronouncements about plastics being bad and everything else in packaging being bad if we then increase the amount of food waste. It's already been clearly proven that food waste contributes more to the environmental impact and carbon warming and greenhouse gases than anything else. Smart packaging can tackle the science and the human factors, and especially those human factors, because it can directly engage with the consumer and show them some important ways to help in the sustainability effort. Next slide. So this at the top end of the market is a new returnable salad box. You register using the QR code on the box with in the retail store, in the store, and then you sort of own the tray and can use it and then return it. Hopefully washed, although again you don't have to wash them. They wash them obviously as well, and you get it 2 weeks free of charge. And then once you finish with it, you take it back to the retail store, check it in the same location that you checked it out, and it makes it a totally circular product, so that there's no waste in the packaging whatsoever, and you keep your salads and other kinds of things like that safe in the box. Next slide. You may or may not have heard of Holy Grail. Holy Grail is a post-consumer recycling project that was funded a little bit by the EU and is now out on its own. It was led by some heavyweight players such as Procter & Gamble and Henkel, and it's now at a very advanced stage. It's now, instead of being Holy Grail 2.0, it's 4.0. There are production tests going on at the back end of last year and now in the beginning of this year. It uses a digital watermarking product by Digimark, who are a United States company, and that actually means that you can identify the different kinds of plastics and make it far easier to sort it and do that automatically without the need for hand picking, if you like. Next slide. Part of this of the sustainability effort is every big company these days has a social responsibility, social corporate responsibility strategy, and that includes both end users and the packaging manufacturers. Here, Tetra Pak are using smart packaging on their packs, a QR code or a thing, to produce a message about sustainability to the end user. They're doing that through a gamification platform, so consumers can play a game which are themed on renew, recycle, and reduce. And a recent survey has shown that while COVID and food waste are huge and very high up on the agenda for consumers at the moment, the environmental impact of packaging and other aspects of sustainability are very high on the agenda still. So it's not gone away, and it will probably return to the top of that table when we have finished off our COVID virus. Next slide. Again, big players. Kellogg's here using a technology to put information on their boxes for those with hard of hearing or sight impairment, sorry, not hard of hearing, sight impairment or challenging issues. They can scan the box and hear an audio of things like allergen information, recycling information, and ingredients. They also have Braille on the pack with larger font sizes, and it's being piloted in the UK, but if it works successfully, and I believe it is, then it will be rolled out in other countries. Next slide. And here's one that possibly is much closer to home in the Philippines, in the fact that Kesla, who are a software platform, identity and traceability platform, and Bayer, one of the major producers of agri products in the world, are using Kesla's SaaS platform to ensure that the farmers throughout the world get the right seeds and get the seeds that they ordered rather than any counterfeiting or substandard product. And as they say, their global commitment to protecting sustainable farming. It's a very simple thing to use as a single platform with a single code repository, and it allows data to be stored in multiple locations. So the farmers can access this easily and make sure their product is genuine. Next slide. Okay, I'm now going to move on to a few examples of how smart packaging is being used in the COVID world. I mean, obviously the big issues are hygiene and safety, secure supply lines and traceability. And sadly, there are always people willing to make a profit out of adversity. And there are plenty of fake kits and PPE and obviously vaccines already in the market. Next slide. So how does smart packaging help? Well, it can certainly look at and help anti-counterfeiting and authentication. There are some interesting products on hygiene, certainly traceability, and at the more sophisticated end, you have real-time data which can help you actually source and price your COVID products such as PPE. Next slide. So here's a few examples. I won't try and read all of this. This is a very simple product that was issued right at the beginning of the COVID crisis when PPE masks were in very short supply, and there were lots and lots of problems with getting people in the medical and the front line the proper equipment. This is a decontamination strip, which you can put simply in a plastic bag to decontaminate and debug a used mask. And the good thing is that the decontamination can be performed locally, and it's ideal for places where global supplies are erratic or in short supply, or where funds for new masks are limited and you need to be able to reuse what you've got. Next slide. This one again is a bit more sophisticated still. You trace the authentication of the mask or other product by actually scanning the fiber in the product, and that has a unique image. And using artificial intelligence, you can actually trace the genuine product right back to its source. Very clever and very simple, and obviously once you've installed it, not very expensive. Next slide. This, again, simple. We handle a lot of stuff when we're putting product through the logistics chain, and more so because more and more people are ordering and buying stuff online. If it's anything to go by with the amount of delivery vans that run up and down my street every day, it's worldwide. And this is just very simple. You spray the box with a particularly antimicrobial hygiene coating, and you identify that on the box as a clean area, and the actual product by TouchGuard is proven to kill 99% of bacteria, and of course it doesn't affect the recyclability. Next slide. Again, very simple, straightforward. It's not a lot of capital investment to do this. This is Systec with a brand protection suite. You don't even need to actually install any additional artwork on your existing packaging. It takes an existing barcode, and through, again, a kind of AI, it works out the unique characters of each individual barcode on each individual pack. The premise by Systec is that PPE, test kits and vaccines will be counterfeited, as the internet is a perfect distribution channel, and I agree with that entirely. This software adds a digital authentication layer. And remember that word digital, because the digitization of packaging is what we're talking about. Next slide. Again, at the top end of the market here, we've got a Smart Track, Avery Dennison and Suku, a blockchain-powered AI, NFC tag. And this actually can be programmed to give you real-time data about test kit results and help the allocation of resources and personnel. It can also help you review the purchase price of things like PPE against a global average to avoid price manipulation. So it has many advantages for those countries that find that kind of thing difficult, and I'm sure Philippines might be counted among them. And it also leads to fast decision making. Next slide. And finally, very simple, Chromatic Technology and American Thermal. This is tracking vaccine through the supply chain. You all probably know that vaccines need to be kept at very, very distinct temperatures. Pfizer -70, AstraZeneca -20. And therefore, to make sure that your vaccine is absolutely in the condition that you need to use it, and so that it's not wasted, this is a color changing tag, combining with an ATI temperature monitor, and it is highly sensitive and ensures that when you get the product, you are confident that it's actually been kept properly in the supply chain. Next, please. Okay, we're going to move on briefly to anti-counterfeiting and traceability. Here again, a very low-cost solution. They're calling it a chipless NFC. It's magnetic ink code, so you print your barcode or your QR code with a magnetic device, and that gives you a sort of an NFC capability in that code. Their claim is that this is a low-cost, high-volume solution, and it provides direct authentication and, of course, traceability, again, depending on the level of sophistication of the code. Next slide. Dentsu. One of the big challenges for the smart packaging industry is that a lot of people are saying, well, can you do this over millions of products, not just hundreds of thousands or thousands of products in a campaign? Well, Dentsu have done this, again, in conjunction with the EU, and it's a visibility for all cigarette packets sold in the European Union. And it's a digital 2D barcode, and that's on every pack. It's the software that's the clever stuff, and the fact that it can gather data, store data, and distribute data. They're claiming that the first year of operation, which I think was 2019, or yeah, with 27 billion cigarette packs were tracked through 750,000 economic operators, and it generated 150 billion records. And it identifies patterns of illicit trade, so it has many advantages. But the thing from the smart packaging area was that it actually really is a scalable solution. Next slide. Again, closer to home, an authentication and traceability suite from Kessler. They're using their platform, which I described earlier with Bayer, in a slightly different way. It puts a unique barcode on produce such as watermelons and radishes, believe it or not, from China, and now rice, and it's being rolled out in other areas. It has a unique ID for every product, and the good thing about it is it's accessible because you can use it on WeChat. Next slide. Again, very simple solution. This is thermochromic ink, which changes color under temperature. And this allows you to know that the can or the pouch that you're actually buying or the retailer is stocking has reached the correct sterilization temperature. A simple check, very easy to use. It's done with the same pieces of kit that a normal date code is put on, and it's simple and effective. It's just using a different kind of ink technology. Next slide. And this is a very simple food waste solution, which is basically to do with extending the shelf life of things like avocados. You can do it for mangoes and other, and it's an ethylene scavenger. It's not the newest technology, but it's very nicely put together as a total package, and it's biodegradable, and it won an award as a world-changing idea. Next slide. Again, different take on the same product, an avocado, but this has received quite a lot of excitement in the West. Appeal, it's an organic edible coating that you can put on each individual product, and it's proven to extend the shelf life of avocados. It's FDA approved, so GRAS means generally regarded as safe. It retains moisture and acts as a barrier to microbial growth. It's so popular and so exciting in the potential. It's received $250 million of financing to develop the idea. Next slide. And this, again, a bit more sophisticated. If you're exporting seafood, you need to ensure that it keeps its condition very well. And so Aptar have produced a clever little pack which combines two technologies, a well at the bottom of the pack which captures the excess moisture, and then a pathogen agent which is released into the pack, which will kill bacteria, is 99% effective against most foodborne pathogens, and actually dissipates without trace after 24 to 48 hours. So if you need to keep your seafood products or something similar fresh, here's a simple, it costs, well, cost effective. You have to look at the price point on that. I'm not 100% certain what the cost is, but it's certainly effective. Next slide. Food waste again. This is a clever way of using shell seafood waste, which is their skin or their coatings. You break down the chitin or chitosan into a product which you can then turn into a biodegradable film. There's a pilot scale on the market for this. The difference with this one is that they break down the shells using a non-chemical process, whereas most ways of doing this already have used a chemical process. So exciting and in trials in the UK. Next one. But I want to sort of get towards the end of my slides with the fact that connected packaging does a job. It authenticates, it anti-counterfeit, it breeds loyalty, but it can be fun, it can be entertaining, and it can certainly bring a degree of entertainment and hopefully differentiate your brand from others in the very crowded and competitive space. Next slide. So here's one that's very topical. This Saturday, you've got the Super Bowl in America. I'm sure a lot of people around the world watch it. Pepsi have sponsored the halftime show for some years, and this time they're putting all their eggs in that basket. They're not doing adverts at halftime, which are both expensive and sometimes not as effective as their halftime show, they believe. So they're turning this into a multi-platform 6-week event. It's not just 12 minutes of fun at half time. So they have limited edition QR packs with QR codes, which take the customer to Pepsi halftime. And that comes with an AR, which is augmented reality filter. So you get entertained for not just that 12 minutes at half time, but you can engage with the brand over several weeks. Next slide. Again, we spoke about thermochromics a little while back. Here's just a fun way of using thermochromics to entertain kids. This was Halloween products. So the products lights up and you can use your smartphone to activate the thermochromic and get some very interesting effects. You can use thermochromic. This is photochromic. You can use thermochromic on beer cans, etc., to ensure that you're drinking a beer at the right temperature. Next slide. Okay, but ending this, I want you to think out of the box. Here's a very clever pack which doesn't use any smart technology at all. It's just some very clever common sense, in the sense that the Korean supermarket that thought this up was fed up throwing its bananas away because they weren't being used properly, or weren't being bought by the time they over ripened. So it put 6 bananas in a pack, which were at various stages of ripeness, and you took them home and you could have your 6 bananas over the week at the perfect ripeness by buying 1 pack of bananas. People were complaining that using this kind of packaging for something like a banana is wasteful, and I'm quite sure maybe in the Philippines a lot of bananas are still used, still bought loose. But this, in that particular market, in other markets or metro markets, could be a very valuable way of saving food waste. And there was some study done on this pack because of the complaints, and it proved that wasting 1 or 2 bananas is far more impactful on the environment than the cost of the packaging to the environment. So think on that when you're using or designing your packaging. Next one, please. And this one, a lot of fun. Suntory, Pernod Ricard, big brands. The pod or the bubble that you see there is made from seaweed extract. It's totally edible, and it doesn't taste of seaweed, by the way, because I have actually tried one. And essentially, you can put most types of liquid in it. Here, they were doing it for a promotion for the Glenlivet whiskey, but it was actually used in a major marathon in London. And the good thing about this from an environmental aspect was that it cut CO2 emissions and cut waste. So you weren't throwing bottles all over the place with 25,000 runners. They just picked up a few of these globes and popped them in their mouth. So there was some very real environmental benefits from that. Next one. And really, just to make sure that all the possibilities are covered, it has been recently discovered that if you combine durian skin with a palm oil and PLA, which is a plastic, you can actually make a film with antimicrobial properties. The good thing is, love or hate the durian, I mean, the skins tend to go to waste. So here's a way of actually using the skins effectively and producing a beneficial effect. Next slide. Finally, just a brief word about our Global Smart Packaging Programme. Obviously, we're going to be virtual all year. We're starting off in March in South Asia, in India, and moving on later in the year to China, where we're actually running a hybrid because the Chinese can actually move about a bit more easily than we can in the West. But we've decided to concentrate and focus on various key topics like supply chain, sustainability and recycling, digitization of packaging, which means anything to do with connected packaging, blockchain, anti-counterfeiting, consumer engagement. So anything from AR to NFC chips, etc. And these are the things that we've identified. We've identified where the pain points, as they're called, are, and we hope that we can cover these over the next year before we can get back to some real live events in 2022. Next slide. So I apologize as usual at this stage for running through a lot of information very quickly. The slides will be available. I'm here to ask questions, or you can contact me via email to follow up questions. But thank you for bearing with me this far. And now we're going to hand over to Mark again, who will be introducing the next speaker. Thank you for your attention.
All right. Thank you, Andrew, for that such an insightful presentation. And it's great to know that during lover like myself, we are doing something for the environment as well, not just enjoying the durians. So we now see the smart packaging, the example of its uses on wide variety of products, how smart packaging and digitization play a huge role in trackability, traceability, which comes down to the product and shelf life of your products, the environment, the social responsibility, but as well as, most importantly, consumer safety. So before we go to the next speaker, we do have a Q&A box. There's some questions coming in right now, and we'll be answering those questions toward the end of the session. So let's now dig deeper into the technology and their applications. Our next speaker today, he leads ScanTrust Business Development and Enterprises Connected Packaging Solutions in Asia Pacific. He has 15 years of international business experience across Asia, Europe, and Africa. His career includes account management at the WPP Advertising Agency, environmental consulting, and distributed network management for wire and cabling in the electrical transmission and distributions, rail, and telecom industry. Let us all welcome Mr. Tim Hansel-Meyers.
Great. Hi, Mark. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on. It's a virtual Tim today, obviously, here in Bangkok, Thailand, where I'm based for the past 15 years. And yeah, I was at I think it was the World Trade Center in Manila about this time last year for my first ProPak Philippines. So thanks to invite me back again for 2021. So I'm going to share my screen and take through some of my stuff here. So yes.
Okay, Tim, just before we go to your presentation, just to keep our audience awake, we're going to have one poll, just one more poll before we go to your presentation, Tim.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, please put up the poll. How has COVID changed the way brands manage their packaging? All right, so we're just going to wait for about 10 to 15 seconds for the response to come in. All right, so we see attendees are gravitating toward innovation, whether it's innovation through adaptation or finding new technologies to support their side of the business. All right, so Tim, a lot of people are more willing to innovate. Now, we're gonna hear from you today what sort of technologies and the applications and the case studies that we have. But what do you think about the mindset of our attendees today?
Yeah, it's to be honest, I would expect more conservative to be even a little higher in some cases, because some industries really clamped down on what they knew and what they could do, what they knew they could do in through tough times. And maybe this time, maybe 6 months ago, it would have been more like that. But as I think we've progressed through COVID to a point where there's maybe a light far down the tunnel, companies are saying, wow, we've changed our business models in so many different ways. Maybe we've incorporated digitalization solutions on our supply chain or other aspects in our day-to-day. So what can we do with our packaging? What's out there, and particularly on the on the smart packaging or connected packaging side. So yeah, I think now is about right. Brands are really looking around to see what's out there and how they can get a bit of a advantage moving forward this year. We hope so. Yeah.
Right, a timely response indeed. So tell us about digital printing and connected packaging, please, Tim. Thank you.
All right. Sorry. Just share. All right. So yeah, I sort of came up with this title, "Cutting the Line." It's a bit of a muse on my part, but I think it does make sense in a few ways. We'll talk about with brands and companies looking at ways, how do we skip a whole process now? What's out there that we used to have to go step 1, 2, 3, but thanks to either some new technology or just a new way of thinking, we can just skip straight to 3. And that, maybe that's a consumer, or it could be an end user of a product. But what I'm going to try to, kind of talk about, at least what we do at ScanTrust, and some thoughts on the industry generally, is how kind of the combination of variable data, digital printing, kind of new technologies are driving this sense of innovation and ways to engage in new ways that are really exciting for brand owners. And so, looking at different kind of ways to incorporate different things into a holistic solution. And I know, some things we are all maybe quite familiar with in terms of how even pre-COVID, digitalization and the switch to consumers having a lot more power in the palm of their hand, as it were, with their phones, and access to faster internet, not just in urban areas, but in rural and sort of across countries. Didn't matter if you were on a faraway island or right downtown. And so it basically, the one constant through this change has been the product packaging. And so again, brands are looking at, how do we leverage this thing that's always been there, but in a way that can engage my consumer, who's going to be more tech savvy, more likely to investigate or research or post about this particular product. So I think this has already been going on. As far as maybe what we all have seen in our lives in the past year, I think it's maybe quite noticeable, the increase of one type of connected packaging, which is the QR code. Nothing new with the QR code. It's been around. Everyone knows it. But it has really taken a place in our lives that's more relevant. And everything from where we started, China really driving this years back with payments through WeChat, through these social channels, but to the point where it started being used in packaging, and now where we're checking into a restaurant, or making a cashless payment. I know for myself, if you asked me a year and a half ago if I ever paid with a QR code, no, I haven't. I never even had an app to do that. Wouldn't know how. And now every day I do. And maybe it's the same for some of the audience, where it's just more of a normal part of life to have the phone, have something physical, and interact with it through the scan, through the QR. And again, as I mentioned, it's been around for payments for a while. It's involving a COVID aspect of our lives, and now brands and packaging are saying, hey, we need to get involved here, where we have an opportunity to interact with someone who's buying, or at least considering to buy our product, live in store, live at the point of sale, after the sale. And so there's a lot of different industries that are utilizing this. I mean, these brands are simply our clients, but there's a lot more. There's a lot more out there, similar to ScanTrust, who are providing services built on top of the physical product. And some of the drivers that we see for brands to think, okay, well, is it time to invest our effort and the costs involved to change the packaging, to add a service on top, and it generally breaks into these 3 drivers, where you're looking at, how much am I paying right now for a consumer interaction, say through a Facebook ad or through my search engine optimization, conversion from a traditional media like a loyalty letter as opposed to someone scanning a product and joining. building the data and insights around this. This is probably the top priority for a lot of brands from the boardroom on down is how do we get better insights into our consumer behavior, into our customer behavior, and therefore drive our market share, be different, be ahead of the curve. These things kind of combine oftentimes to really push towards the business value of doing a connected packaging program if you're starting from your normal pack. So a lot of this again is about both saving cost in terms of what you used to have to pay for this data, still do for a lot of companies where you're paying a Nielsen or a Kantar or these larger research firms to generate data, and where you have connected packaging, you can start to bring this in-house. You can start to engage again using something you own, you the brand owner, and to build these solutions, which as Andrew went through, there's quite a lot, kind of going from once you're transitioning from offline to online, the world is your oyster, but it does take. There are always kind of various components that work together. So Scantrust as a company, we're more of a software side. We're the platform that will help to generate and manage, say, the QR code in a QR code example, and then work with a label supplier or a packaging company or aluminum can manufacturer to actually bring the digital form of that into the physical world, and then once that's accomplished, you have a QR code there. Then okay, what do you want to do with it? Of course, you can drive consumer engagement. You can do these very loyalty or bring greater trust, and I'll go into some of these use cases, but it does involve a lot of moving pieces, and I think it's key to just understand that it is a team effort to bring a full solution that's going to be make the brand successful. There's usually 4 at least P's of packaging, 3, 4 that we've come up with at least, that are important to consider when thinking, again, mainly from a brand's perspective, but it does involve the packaging, especially regarding to say where or how the engagement mechanism, let's say, stick with QR code to make it easy. There are RFID and NFC and AR and lots of other ways, but mainly the QR is more used for cost effectiveness. But where is it? Is it going to face the consumer when they're walking down the aisle? Is it on the back of the product? Is it hidden somehow, or only available post-purchase? Because that will lead into number 2, which is the purpose of the program. To obviously get activity and drive engagement, there needs to be a reason to scan. Payments are quite easy. I need to pay. But if it's just a product and you want that person to scan it, again, there should be some call to action or some benefit there. And bringing that eye to the product is also part of, an important part. How is this, it's not just incorporating digital, a digital component or variable data printing. You have to work and actually get people to notice it. And it does also make a difference where this product is going to be distributed. It is changing thanks to, not thanks to, but because of COVID, that the North American and European markets are becoming more, say, digital savvy in terms of QR. But Asia still far exceeds the engagement rates and just general ability for consumers and understanding of consumers to engage through QR. So these kind of combine together in terms of what the brand might want to do. And then, I'm just going to go through a few use cases here, and I hope the video is not going to lag too bad. But let's say in this case, you've got the printed label actually on top of the product. So this is going to sit on the shelf, and you want, then the idea is, okay, we're going to give an authenticity message, but also generate ideally, a feedback mechanism that will, be a combination of, we can start to look at who's interacting, where they are, and which products they're buying. If you have a range of SKUs, or trying to upsell a certain range of products based on a scan of one, this is how the process can start. And the consumer, again, this is just an example, can go anywhere. It can be on a ScanTrust page, for example, or on this branded page. But once the feedback can get requested either through a coupon that you might get or something else, the service on top of that is that the scans are data points, basically. And without any incentive, there would probably be no reason for me to ever give my name or my personal information, and it can't be collected anyway without request and following the GDPR requirements typically, or local data protection requirements for opt-in, opt-out. But even without the PII side, you can combine what again, I'm talking from a brand perspective, the data that is fed back through you through an opt-in mechanism with, say, a location that they're based, or which unique serial number that product was attached to, and what shipment it was from, and so on. So that with a single scan, it may not be much, but as this data adds up, this is where the value starts to come in. And there's also mechanisms to redirect consumers simply based on which geographic location they're in. So even though it may be the same product, because of the IP address or the GPS location, this brand, for example, Zendium, in this case, can redirect to a UK site if I'm in London, or if I'm in Geneva, I'll go to the Swiss site. So it allows for a more personalized redirect, again, based on the print, and then the redirect, the solution based on top. So driving towards personalization is really one of the key trends, and engaging at a unique level as much as possible. And one of the projects we've been working on the last couple of years is where a unique code has been added to the sachet in order to give a very personalized and dynamic information response in terms of the ingredients that go into this product. So the reason that each code is being scanned here in the lower left is that it's actually logging what shipment or what batch it's part of, which links to the pork content, and whether it was fully certified by the GAP standards, and you can, as a consumer, see all this information as you're buying the pack or considering the pack or any time, and it goes into quite a lot of detail on the traceability. But also there'll be a component about incentivizing through promotion, recipe ideas, things that are relevant to that particular SKU, and then driving into an e-commerce platform. So the idea is to drive directly from consideration or purchase into more purchase through, again, using the pack as the bridge to do that, but drive trust as well, because you're giving all this additional information about the product. And it can, the aspect of sustainability or traceability can be both about the product itself, but also what that represents. And so the QR code, of course, is quite versatile. Anything can be behind it. And in this case, the product is sunglasses that are from recycled, basically recycled fishing nets. And so the experience that a consumer gets, by the way, if you have your phones with your computer screen or whatever, just go ahead and, if you want to see these pages, just scan the code here. And so it allows for something that's tangential, I'll say, to the physical product, say a WWF component, but combining these two, and again giving a lot more information than you could with just the sunglasses on the shelf and a little hang tag. So again, the QR code acts as a bridge to a lot of different information about the product. And it can be both more, kind of consumer goods, but also, more industrial, or at least, less of a household name, but these products that are used, for example, in water filtration, and the engagement, or at least the engagement process is more focused on the trade or the B2B customer that will then resell this water filter onto the homeowner, for example. So the code acts both as a unique identity for confirming authenticity, and so then you need to be able to uniquely market, in this case with a ScanTrust secure graphic in addition to the QR code, but also provide all the product information that someone might need to explain how it works, and so on. So this it kind of serves a dual purpose between just generating trust, but also helping your resellers sell better. So again, the printing happens, but then the app can be built by an agency. The data collection could be a ScanTrust or somebody else, but these things kind of combine together for the solution, in this case for DuPont. And I think one driver we mentioned in the beginning was about promotion, and this typically has always been the domain of coupons or scratch off, or things that can be controlled at the point of sale specifically. Buy a product, cashier has something to give you, but through especially through position of the QR code. In this case, we worked with the aluminum can manufacturer to position the QR code underneath the tab. This allows that same type of promotion that used to be manual, like in person, to go online. And what's quite beneficial in this case is that it is a dynamic control knob that in this case Kieran has. If they want to change the reward that someone would get for buying a can of beer on a Monday, they change right away, and they don't need to worry that they've already printed X number of cans with that specific reward on it, and it's already in the market. There's nothing they can do. The code is dynamic and under their control. So it kind of changes their ability to manage their budget and also manage the time frame of a promotion, say, or what they want to do in a seasonal way. The B2C side is something maybe we're all more familiar with. One thing that ScanTrust does quite a bit of is also the B2B or reseller loyalty programs, where it's still involving a pack and of course someone who's going to scan the product, but it's a way of engaging someone who's going to act on behalf of the brand, say resell, in this case it's Mobil Oil lubricant. So the end customer would say be the vehicle owner who's coming to the shop, but the person who's selling it is the mechanic in the workshop. And of course that mechanic does not work for Mobil, but what they do have access to is their phone, and in this case a mechanics club that allows them to be part of a program that they earn points every time they sell a Mobil. And the way they get that is by scanning, again, a unique a variable QR code that's actually inside the cap itself. So back to the second P of position, the fact that it is not on the label itself, but only visible or accessible post purchase or opening, allows Mobil to use the ScanTrust system to give points and to manage segmentation of that mechanic, different incentives based on sales missions or what's happening with new product launches, and ideally, get them to prefer to suggest mobile versus the other products in the workshop. So yeah, it is similar to maybe the Kieran example, but the target is quite specific. It's not for the general public, but for a particular point in the supply chain, very critical point of the sales. So we just kind of wrapping up, or at least kind of getting out of the use cases and specifics. We and again companies with similar services and solutions to us are typically in a software as a service business model. So we have typically three kind of our fees and our costs, and the way we work are usually directly with a brand owner, either partnering with a printing partner, or being or coming together at the time of the product setup. So we have a fee that is paid by the brand as they get started with the work, and then it functions kind of like a license or a subscription model where they are accessing and using all the functionality that we have, from consumer and loyalty programs to supply chain track and trace, if that's the goal, or to have the ability to authenticate the product. It could be one, two, or all three combined, and these combine to add up to what they're going to be using and paying for the service, again based on their volume of units. So the aspects of the code itself. So I say we do typically work on a basis, either partnering or ad hoc with a brand. We do have a partnership, as one example of where we do a more strategic setup with our sort of printing partners with EPAC. They're actually a US-based company, but they're quite aggressive in their growth, specifically in using HP Indigo digital printing for flexibles, and they want to focus. They're really focused on SMEs and cutting waste when they're smaller print runs. So they selected ScanTrust to work with to create their own kind of connected pack product called ProPak Connect, where they are combining everything great about digital printing and in their case HP Indigo specifically, with again the solutions that can be layered on top of just the physical pack itself for their brand. So their customers can choose to add brand protection, or they can choose to add a consumer engagement or something like that, depending on what they'd like to test or use in a particular market. So this is also one of our models that we have at ScanTrust for the solution. And my last slide, I just show this again. Obviously, we don't go through it step by step, but really to just emphasize that it is always a team or group or a partnership effort for a total solution to happen, and especially when it's involving unique markings of products. The connected pack at a very basic level, where it's just a single QR code and it links to a website. Of course, you don't need all this stuff. It's really, but when these other benefits start to kind of get used, it gets more complicated, and thus the different parts from a solution provider to the printing partner to the production line or WMS that's being used kind of become more important. And so yeah, these things always do combine together to give a full solution. So that's it, I think. Yeah, that's my last slide. Thanks a lot. I guess, Mark, we have some Q&A or a poll. I can't quite remember, but thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Tim. So we've come to the most interesting session of today, which is Q&A. So I'd like to kick off the questions with you, Tim. You spoke about QR code, and we saw the benefits on the QR code and how it's being adopted. What about 2D data metrics barcode? There are some attendees who may not know what it is. So if you could touch on it briefly on what it is, the adoption rate on this technology, and what we'll see beyond QR codes. Tim?
So 2D, yeah, there's, I guess in the world of barcoding, it generally divides into 1D and 2D as the top layers, where 1D would be the rectangular code that is used at the cashier to scan out when you're paying, mainly. And then 2D will be typically looking like a QR code or similar. And then they're generally containing more data. And that data type can be different depending on if it's a data matrix, for example, that is quite common in pharmaceuticals, where it will contain a JITN or a GS1 number or a sequence based on the production, but typically not a web URL, which is what QR codes, which again are usually a little bit larger than a data matrix, looking quite similar, will contain, along with say a JITN or other information. And depending on this kind of the end goal of that code, whether if it's consumer engagement, typically QR codes are better because more phones can read them more easily, and can again contain the URLs. But if it's say an example of again pharma, where the space is quite limited and it's really just to read in line at very high speeds, the data matrix might be a better choice in that case. So kind of depends on the application, but that's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. So if anyone has any questions, please drop in the Q&A box. We're going to roll off with the questions that we have received. But to actually touch on what Tim mentioned earlier on the data metrics, if anyone would like to know more about data metrics, please let us know, put in the survey. We're going to have more information on that. We may be able to bring GS1 to bring some of the content to everyone. So let's go into the questions. The first one, what is the benefits of smart packaging? Will it be competitive over the traditional packaging? This one, let's go to Andrew.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please, Andrew.
Okay, yeah, thank you. The significance is that it brings a new dimension to the way packaging can be used. It's not just there as Tim mentioned during his presentation, the 4 Ps. We tend to call it 3 Ps: preserve, protect, and promote. And smart packaging adds a different dimension in the fact that you can use it as a marketing tool. You can use it as a measure to protect your product in ways that you never envisaged possible. The thing that excites brands generally is this aspect of consumer engagement and the ability to collect data. And again, Tim did a much better deep dive into that than I did. And obviously, as soon as you engage with the pack via your smartphone, you're providing data as well as getting data. Obviously, there's a cost, an entry cost. That cost has come down significantly across the years. I mean, you can now buy an RFID tag for less than 3 cents. And this is a very sophisticated RFID tag, not just a simple crash and burn thing, as I would call it. We have challenges. The sustainability thing is not necessarily a clear-cut thing. Scalability, but I mean, again, I refer to Tim, or I always love watching Tim's presentations because it shows real-time activities on scalable, well-known branded products, and it just proves that you can do this, and that the platforms that you supply, like the software as a service platforms, are very ubiquitous, and they can be rolled out at a very cost-effective way and have a very high impact on a range of areas. So we've only, you know, the whole thing has only been going for about 10 years in terms of a significant move into awareness of smart packaging and use of smart packaging. So we're still a growing industry, but there's been an awful lot of progress, and we expect to see more. And again, I'll refer back to Tim. COVID has changed the way people look at some of these things, and the engagement and doing remote stuff and learning more about the product and making sure that its provenance and hygiene. The fallout from the COVID thing could be, in a perverse sort of way, beneficial for the smart packaging sector. Does that help you? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Andrew. Let's go to you, Tim.
Do you want to add anything on that?
Well, I think just to echo one part of Andrew's response about there usually is a cost increase if it's from traditional packaging to add a feature, like add a smart packaging feature, even if it's QR or some form of different material. So it's really all about kind of building a model that demonstrates the benefits far exceed that investment. and a lot of it will be built around, okay, if I implement this, what's my uptick? Let's say, what's my uptick in sales going to be like, or what can I expect in terms of consumer data that I couldn't get before? And then that, you know, a lot of this cost analysis is done, you know, behind closed doors, but that's about, it's all about the value that can be calculated on top of the incremental cost, because usually you know, there will be, it's quite often there will be some.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Andrew. So we know that data-driven and consumer persona and analytics play a huge role into either product development or packaging development or trackability, traceability. We see examples from MNC and major brand owners. Directly to you, Tim, do you find you receive a lot of increase or the interest from the SME or MSME at all in terms of adoption or working with you on the ROI of these technologies?
For SMEs, we do get interest. I guess it's how are we talking about? It does usually take some scale to get to get a benefit of a little bit more of a complex solution. I'm thinking of some examples in the food industry in Thailand, which is huge. There's a wide range of everything from mom and pop kind of or just one person shop that puts out their own little brand to the CPs of the world. And we see a lot of connected packaging or new ways of designing and interaction on the packaging at the smaller level, but it would be trying to use any kind of existing platforms from okay, my e-com, I'm going to use Shopify, I'm using Line for my social, I've got building on these tools that are available, but they are using a QR code, for example, or some other technology on the packaging. So it is, for us, it's still more on the higher volumes or larger companies, or those companies that are smaller but producing maybe higher value products that need some, that can benefit from some of these features. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix, but generally towards those two groups.
So it's economic of scale or objective of that technologies to be adopted.
Right.
All right, thank you. So we have a question from Winston, but this is going to touch on the QR code. Are smart codes typically unique per pack, or one standard QR code is used for the whole batch of runs, whether it's SKU, or for unique QR code per pack, how can this be implemented using rotogravure printing. Let's go to you, Tim, first.
Yeah, well, the choice of whether the QR code is on one unique pack each, or one QR code per unique pack, or one QR code for all packs of a certain type is, I guess it's a business decision, or kind of a capability decision. Most of the examples I gave were the first one, where it's one code, one unique code per pack. So if it's that way, it is not possible to use only rotogravure on the printing. There must be some component of VDP to add that unique code. If the second one, where it's just one code for, say, each SKU, so you would print that same code over and over again for each pack, gravure is fine. But the features that can be put on top of the same code are maybe less than what can be used on a unique code. So the decision tree is usually kind of, what would I like to do, and is having the same code on all packs okay? I just want to redirect to a website and track who goes to it, then okay, gravure is fine, not much integration needed. If you want to do, say, a track and trace or a loyalty program or something that's personalized, need to involve VDP, and therefore you'd have to supplement the existing process.
Right, thank you. So if there are more questions, or we find that all these barcodes, QR codes, data matrix code, and the way that technology is able to support the companies, we might bring GS1 to the session later on in the future episodes to provide more information. So the questions from Edward Neal: where can we contact the suppliers of these new technologies? I hope that the response answered directly, which is Tim. Let's jump to the next question.
Can I just jump in and say, for all of the companies that I mentioned, and obviously in Tim's company, if you go into the IPEA website, hit the members button, you can go into the member list and you just scroll down. It's an alphabetical rolling list. And if you click on the member, like somebody asked about Magic ID, you could just click on that, and that should take you directly into their website. So you can go directly through the IPEA website to contact the membership. Okay,
that's great.
And if you're having trouble finding it or whatever, just contact me. Okay. It's
always, Andrew. Thank you. So we have another question from anonymous attendee, actually, to you, Andrew. What's the difference between smart packaging and intelligent packaging? Actually, I do wonder.
Okay. Well, this is the universal conundrum, really. Well, we tend to call it smart packaging because we kept on saying active and intelligent packaging, and it's a bit of a mouthful. Active packaging, I tend to say, works on the product, and intelligent packaging works on the people using it. Active packaging is to do with shelf life extension, antimicrobial growth, slowing ripeness, keeping products in good condition. Even if you like, you can add condition monitoring in that, where something changes color because it's an active process. The intelligent side of it is the stuff that sort of Tim's into, authentication, provenance blockchain, anti-counterfeiting, loyalty programs, consumer engagement, data gathering. So if you think of it as a sort of active works on the product, intelligent works on the person and using it, or the consumer, and the enabler. It's a bit clumsy, but that's about it. Okay.
Thank you. That paints a good mental picture for everyone.
I refer you back to the slide I used right at the top with the graphic, giving you a sort of a little bit of a roadmap. Okay.
Great. Thank you. Actually, the comments and your response actually dovetails directly into the next questions. It's a two-part questions from Asil and Anonymous. is there a coating good for mangosteen? Another part is from Anonymous. What is nanotechnology can be fused into active packaging? Andrew?
Okay, well, the first one's easy. I mean, most ethylene scavenging or ripening slowers will work on most types of fruit. I mean, there are some that have chemical makeups that are more difficult, but the coating that I mentioned, the appeal coating, I believe works on more than just avocados. They were citing avocados because it's a high value product, and obviously there's a cost element in coating these products. But you know, they can go and talk to or look at the websites, and there are other ways of doing it that don't provide coating, but that seems to be the fashionable one at the moment, and obviously there's a lot of interest around the world in the appeal coating. So the short answer is yes, you can use this on more than avocados, but you'd need to talk to the product provider to make sure how efficacious or effective it is on each particular type of fruit. And the other one, the nano, was that the next question? Yeah, the nanotechnology. I saw that one. Yeah,
Nanotechnology for active packaging.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of work being done. IPEA was involved in a project called NanoPak for 3 years, developing an antimicrobial film using nanotechnologies. There is a lot of work being done on nanotechnology because it is quite an antimicrobial, has antimicrobial properties in some areas. The problem is that, of course, it comes down to cost in the end. I mean, the effectiveness we can prove. It's about producing a film that's effective using the technology at the right sort of prices. Do you know anything about that one, Tim? I'm not 100% certain that's your field.
No.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if they want to know a bit more about people doing it, I would ask them to contact me directly, and I can give them a few names of projects that are currently underway using nano. I mean, nano is also being used in technology to produce conductive inks for printed electronics, so printed tags and stuff like that, because it's a very highly conductive ink. But again, we come down to, is it cost effective? And the answer is, at the moment, it's more expensive than some of the alternatives, but the alternatives are not very eco-friendly, like silver and copper. So graphene has a good story to tell, but it needs to be cost effective. And we're working with an organization at the moment called the Graphene Council to learn more and pass that on to our members and our stakeholders. Okay.
That is on the upper echelon of packaging, right? The infuse of technology. But what about mono materials that could actually be beneficial to the sustainability, but would also be the technologies for us as a bridging the gap for whether it's plastics, sustainability, but also shelf life balance, Andrew?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not really a smart packaging area. In most of the barrier films and most of the films that are effective against ingress of the nasty stuff that attacks produce and proteins are laminates. They've been developed over many years, but now, because of the need to try and do more recycling of flexible packaging, there is a great move towards trying to develop monomaterials that are effective in food contact situations and doing that job. I'm not a scientist and I'm not an expert, but all of the big, like Uflex and folk like that, and Amcor, are all developing monomaterials to try and do that job of barrier protection that's currently done by laminates, and obviously that's a good thing. But again, we come back to that you can solve most problems with science, but how much does the science cost?
That's a lot.
Well, I don't know. I know I wouldn't wish to. I mean, they wouldn't put them on the market if they didn't think they could sell them. but you know, and there is if you read the packaging press here in the West, and I'm sure out in Asia, there are an awful lot of stories about development of monomaterials and simple things. I'm a bit of a hard-nosed person when it comes to it's not the plastic waste that's the problem, it's the people who throw the plastic waste in the water or in the street that's the problem. And what we need to do is educate people not to throw stuff away, and much more importantly, to develop recycling facilities and recycling collection points that make it easy for people to do that.
Social responsibility, infrastructure from the government side and state side to support.
It doesn't just have to be, it can be the retailers. I mean, we have a thing here called end user responsibility, producer responsibility, which means that the producers of the plastics have a responsibility to ensure that their product is recycled effectively. And there's a financial stake in that for them. So yeah, what we say, there's a very simple old illustration. You know, there's one way of doing it is using a carrot, and the other way of using it is using a stick. Yeah, so you encourage people or you threaten people, and that's probably the way the governments and organisations are doing it. I mean, there's a great deal of heat on the whole issue of plastics waste over here, which is being taken into the realms of in my opinion, of silliness, because you can't just write off plastics as bad because it's proven to be good, and laminates have been good, and some of the pouches that Tim's putting his QR code on are metallized films because they need to be metallized films. They're metallized for a reason. The thing we've got to deal with is how to deal with the waste effectively, really.
That's the same that I have, and unfortunately, some of the policies, whether it's from Thailand or Philippines, do not align with. Sometimes do not align with what we think. So that's what the breakthrough that we have to do. So let's go through. So we have several questions coming from the audience about privacy concerns, since trackability and traceability is positioned right now as consumer safety. But what about the data that right now could be either anonymous or not anonymous? What about the privacy concern from the consumer side of things, Tim?
Yeah, that's a big thing, and it is well, it generally divides into two camps in terms of the data, whether it's PII, which is the personally identifiable information, or non-PII. And the PII is quite straightforward. Your name, your home address, your phone number, your email, things that can be linked directly to an individual. And a non-PII would be, say, a time of day, or if I scanned and it tells me that it's an iPhone, or I used WeChat to scan. This is the kind of data that is typically collected when a scan happens, but it can't be tied to an individual. And any time that at the end of the day, it's the owner of the product, and let's say a brand, who has a responsibility to follow both local and, well, definitely local, but any international data privacy processes that exist. Typically it's GDPR, which is the European regulation. And it's quite in depth what that includes, but the main kind of takeaway can be that you have to both request the information from somebody. They have to freely give it. You can't just take it. And you must give them always an option to remove themselves and remove their data from your system, from the brand system. So that, and there are some other details in there, but basically if you do both of those things, typically a brand will be okay from a legal perspective. And for consumers, you should always have the ability to block or to opt out of anything that relates to your personal information or anything that can be tracked to you. So maybe people, you recognize these pop-ups that ask you can block your location, or would you like to take a survey? No. I mean, these are the ways that you have to have in terms of the consumer experience or the user experience in order to comply with the regulations. So yeah, but countries, some countries are, I know for example, UK is extremely conscious of these things. Everyone's worried. It's a topic of normal conversation. And then other countries, it's maybe, or places, it's not such a big deal, or at least it's not a hot topic. But I think it will, the things like where WhatsApp changes its privacy policy and everyone switches to Signal, maybe these programs that we've been so used to for years. Facebook's been doing, various things for a while. It is, these concerns will, transfer into intelligent packaging or connected packaging if there's a similar type interaction where there's data, it's online, it's information about me. So it's more of a kind of, we'll see how it goes, but it is a very important topic to follow and to consider.
Yeah, so it's become the line where they say, are you the consumer or are you the product? Right. Yeah. That's the way that companies are collecting all this information, and well, there's some companies that collecting all this information and use it to their advantage. So it's up for the consumer as well to be vigilant on what we give out our information to, whether it's for big or small companies. So question to you is, ScanTrust operating in Philippines?
We don't operate. We have, there are products with our codes on it, I believe, in the Philippines. We don't have any personnel or staff there, but that's typically how we work. We're, physically in Thailand and China, Switzerland, Indonesia, but our products are in, I think now 170 countries. So we do a lot of remote. It doesn't really matter where the product is, or these days with COVID, even where our customer is, because we do a lot of remote implementations. So that if the production site is in the Philippines or production site is in Hawaii, it actually doesn't matter. And then once it's out there, so long as there's an internet connection, it will hit our, it goes into our system. So quite a global situation.
Right. So another question to you, Tim, from Anonymous. What is the status or scale of smart packaging, intelligent packaging in the Philippines? I guess you can, if you could shine a light on technology, provide a perspective.
Status, or like what? So basically, where do you think we're headed? Adoption rate. Yeah. I would like to think up. Of course, I have that vested interest. We're a solution provider that obviously would benefit from it adopting, at least in terms of the connected side. But if the Philippines is at all like maybe the other ASEAN countries, which in many ways I know that it is, it will be, the pressure to adopt these technologies and just the benefits to do so will keep coming. And so the adoption of various things, I think, will increase. It's just sometimes you wait and watch someone else do it first, and sometimes you're ahead of the curve. And so yeah, it's a little hard to say, but I bet my guess is that these types of things will increase over the next couple of years and on.
And can I just jump in very quickly and say, obviously, all the research and predictors going on at the moment are saying that Asia is the area of spectacular growth for the smart packaging technologies in the next 5 to 10 years. It may not be the biggest market in terms of value, but it's certainly the one that's going to grow fastest. And partly that's due to the fact that, as Tim was saying, we now, or in Asia particularly, the smartphone is king, and you use it for so many different things, and you have a younger generation of consumers, and they are very happy to use that medium, and that's the enabler for a lot of smart packaging activity. So there's a bright. We tend to feel that Asia is the brightest star in terms of growth potential over the short-term future.
Thank you for the addition, Andrew. Actually, another question is for you. Do you see smart packaging being used or being more adopted in the consumer care products such as lotions, hair, dye, cream, and those cosmetics?
That's for me.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge potential for smart packaging to be used, because that's a prime area of consumer engagement, and people want to know about the product. They certainly want to know about the ingredients of the product. There's a lot more bio-based products, or products with all sorts of vitamins and stuff in there. So it's a prime area to be able to develop knowledge about the product that you're buying and its provenance. But also on the flip side, people want to know, how to use the product properly. So cosmetics, you can do classes in makeup or classes in hair styling and stuff like that. So you can add value to the product through your smart pack connection.
Thank you. So we heard today, we learned about what digitization, smart packaging, intelligent packaging can do for your products. So we talked about all the questions came across as that we should actually do something more about printing side, more about QR code side, barcode side, new technologies for barcode side, trackability, traceability. There's some specific questions about barcode printers as well as courier printer. So we hopefully that some of the questions we will use to actually develop more deeper content, bringing you more in-depth content from other more insightful speakers or different side of insightful speakers. So I have another question about OTR 10K packaging. What is the demand inside the Philippines for this type of packaging, specifically this type of packaging?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Right, the OTR 10K packaging, I believe that's technology from Sealed Air on the seafood vacuum pack.
Not really my field of operation, I'm afraid, Mark. Sealed Air, an MAP and stuff like that are very effective and highly widely used. I think you'd need to talk to Sealed Air. It's not an area of specialization for me, that, I'm afraid.
That's a great point, and that's actually support to what I was mentioning before. Some of the questions are very specific that please, anyone that would like to have answers on those specific questions, we're definitely bringing those content to you. So some of the questions we already answered, speakers already provide answers in the presentation. So I believe that would conclude our Q&A session for today. But before we go, there's a bit of a short presentation from OPEC. Let's roll the VDR, please. Right, so together with smart packaging, intelligent packaging, and hopefully Tim, and digitization of all things packaging, on-pack solution is one of many technologies and machineries you can expect from ProPak Philippines exhibition. We'll be announcing our plan for 2021 very soon, including the new dates. So please keep an eye out in your inbox or follow us on our social media. We would like to remind you again that after the seminar, you'll be directed to the survey form. Please answer the form for us to serve you better in the future episodes. To know more about ProPak Philippines' latest activities and updates, please follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as our website with a flashing pop-up on the screen on our website. So that is all the time we have for today. Thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate your time and participation. We would also like to thank Andrew Manley, President of Active and Intelligent Packaging Industry Association, AIPIA, Tim Hansen-Meyers, Asia Pacific Regional Director of ScanTrust, for having you as our speakers in today's webinar. The presentation materials, except for the speakers, are owned and copyrighted by Informal Markets. The speakers are solely responsible for their content and opinions. On behalf of our guests, Andrew Manley, Tim Hansen-Meyers, I'm Mark. Thank you for your time. Until next episode, have a great day. Bye.
you.